Hello and welcome. My name's Campbell and this is Autodidactic Channel. Hope you're having an amazing day. Thanks for joining me, and today I want to take a look at a town in country Victoria that's called Yarrawonga. Now this was brought to my attention by Lisa Ellis, who lives in Yarrawonga, and she's actually sent a lot of these pictures through. And she's actually got a short video for us as well. Now this is the town hall. Of course you can see it's a massive red brick building, completely oversized. We've got the clock tower here, which we always see. And yeah, this is in country Victoria, and we'll talk a bit about the town and why it is so out of place to be sitting there. Alright, let's jump into it. Okay, so this is Yarrawonga, Victoria. Yarrawonga is a town in the Shire of the Moira Local Council area in the Australian state of Victoria. The town is situated on the south bank of the Murray River, the border between Victoria and New South Wales, and is located approximately 265 kilometres northeast of the state capital Melbourne. Yarrawonga's twin town of Mullewa is on the other side of the Murray River, and at the 2016 census, Yarrawonga had a population of 7,930 people. Yarrawonga Post Office opened on the 28th of November 1878. Okay, Yarrawonga is served by the standard gauge branch railway, which branches off the Melbourne-Sydney line at Benalla and terminates at Oaklands in New South Wales. Then it just talks a bit more about the town, culture, and that's pretty much all we get. So Yarrawonga, here it is. This is Google Maps. So this is Victoria. So this is, where's the line? Up here, I think. Victoria, Melbourne, Sydney here, and down here is Yarrawonga. And you can see there's not much around here. There's a few towns, but not much. And this is the town itself. Like that's it. That's the full town. So this is just a small country town. It's just one of these small country towns that's surrounded by, farms and farmland, and yeah, it's less than 8,000 people at the moment. So in Yarrawonga, this is the Heritage Council. We just have some of these buildings that are old world buildings, and there's no explanation of how they were built. This is the courthouse at Yarrawonga, built in 1887 to 1888. Built in 1 year. It's not a huge building. I've got some pictures of it, but as you can see, we've got the doors, we've got the arches, we've got, the arched windows. In Australia, you'll find they replace all the roofs, they're all with tin, and they love putting these verandas on the buildings as well. So that was 1887 to 1888. That's Tugama, sorry. And this is Yarrawonga Post Office. They're not telling us when that was built. That was around the same time though. And all around this kind of area, again, look at this big arch. You just kind of get this, Tartarian type architecture. And this is out in the middle of nowhere, guys. Look at this one. This one's abandoned. You find lots of these abandoned as well, which really tells you, why would you go to all the effort of building this big stone building if it's really in the wrong spot? And, if you look at abandoned buildings and railway lines and stuff in Australia, but all over the world, they made a lot of mistakes if they're getting us to believe that story. But I believe they're just the buildings that they found, and they just couldn't use them, or they used them for a bit and went, it's just in the wrong spot, and so they left it. This is Yarrawonga Courthouse. It's now been turned into a primary school, but as you can see, I mean, that's just the classic architecture that we see everywhere. Very nice building, and raised off the ground. We've got some steps going up. I have got some photos of some people in there, so you'll see the size of the door. Okay, so the courthouse was built in the early 1890s. Early 1890s. This is a church. It's the St. Cuthbert's Anglican Church in Yarrawonga. The memorial stone was laid by the Venerable Archdeacon Tucker on the 26th of May 1884, and the church was constructed and dedicated in that year. So 1884. So all these buildings, you know, we're being told they're all being built around the 1880s. In a sort of, you know, looks like they're all in a 10-year sort of time frame. Yarrawonga's 150-year celebration. This is that building that we saw at the start, the town hall. This is the clock tower, I believe. This is what they're saying is they constructed Yarrawonga Shire Hall in 1930. So the Shire Hall was actually built a bit later, they say. Completed in 1930 at a total cost of £14,875. Which is quite a lot of money to be spending, because, you know, if there's not even 8,000 people there in 2016, so how many do you think were there in 1930? What, 1,000? What about the 1880 when they built the post office? I mean, and I've looked for the census, I'll show you what I found, but I can't find any figures of any population at all back then, so it seems like there were just a few farmers around. So this photo, well, let us look at it now. Basically, look, you can see that this building's, it's completed. They're not building anything. Like that's finished. That tower's finished. All the walls are finished. Look down here. I mean, it looks a bit dilapidated, doesn't it? It almost looks burnt. It looks like they just refurbishing, rebranding, refacing an old building, and this is what we see all the time. They tell us their construction photos, and we see a finished building with, you know, some scaffolding on it, a few bits of pieces around, and it's like, that's a construction photo. It's not. That's built up to the roof. I mean, it's completely finished. Can't see the top here. If the clock's there, I mean, it looks like it's not. But this is the only photo I could find. So, you know, it's a bit hard to sort of really tell. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely not a construction photo. Where are all the workers? Show us the ground. I mean, come on. Okay, this is the Shire. So the Moira Shire is the Shire that Yarrawonga is in. Yarrawonga is the parish, is in the parish of Yarrawonga, and in 1994 the administrative centre for the Shire, for the former Shire of Yarrawonga. The town was surveyed in 1868 and proclaimed in 1881. Okay, so within 10 years they had at least 3 of those big brick buildings built for post offices and stuff. Following the opening of the Benalla to Yarrawonga railway line in 1886, a significant increase coinciding with the construction of the Yarrawonga Weir in the 1930s and the development of the Goulburn Murray irrigation area, growth in tourism from the late 1940s in the area. So basically they're saying from the 1930s and 40s it started to grow, but, you know, they're building things back in the 1800s. And it's named after a pastoral station run by Elizabeth Hume, established in 1842. By 1850 there was a police camp that had been established. Blah, blah, blah. So, you know, 1842 was the first people in the area. 1850 they had a little camp. 1868, you know, a few hovels. Then they surveyed the town. And blah, blah, blah. Now this is the township that they surveyed. And as you can see, that's it. 4 blocks. Now these days it goes down here and sort of across here. That's pretty much it. there's no mention, like I said, of the actual populations. It really just goes into, telling you that, how much, wheat and stuff they produced, and, they opened a state school and, stock and all this kind of stuff. Pretty boring. But yeah, not a lot of information on the populations at all. Okay, so this is a picture of Yarrawonga. Belmore Street, showing the monument and town hall. So this is a monument very similar to stuff we see all over the world, with a statue on the top in the middle of the street, as you do. Down here we can see the big tower of the town hall. 30s by the looks of it, 40s. It could even be a bit later, 50s. So it's just a country town, guys. It's just a little country town. This here is, this was the post office, was it? Can't remember. But this is that building we looked at. And as you can see, big red brick building, oversized. I mean, that just looks like a big building. And this is all built, this is it in the past. Built in the 1880s. I mean, why? Look at the height. That's not even a floor, I don't think. I think that's just like that's one room, just a massive high thing. This is the Yarrawonga Mill. These are brick. Whoops. These silos are brick. And they're still standing. This was the Riverina flour mills. As you can see, this looks to be a wooden building. And this is all brick. Now this is how they build silos today. It's just all tin. And as you'll see from the photos, they had tons of this because they roofed everything with it. So why'd they build those massive, huge, tall silos out of bricks? It's a lot of work. And look, they're pretty thin. So the volume you get, not really much. Here they are today. What I found interesting is, I'm not sure what this side is, but look, there's windows down there. I don't know. Is that like a stairwell where you could go and check the grain? I don't really know. These must be the doors that they could empty it. But just, and just in the middle of nowhere, just standing there by itself. As you can see, it's just a country town. There's there's not much happening. Not a lot going on. This is just one of the buildings in the main street. You see this everywhere. It's just been painted. We see, this balustrading. See that on all the old buildings. This is pressed tin. Now, we get this in a lot of Australian country towns, so I'm not sure how prevalent it is overseas, but they press the tin and they use it as ceilings, and it's all ornate and intricate. Done in panels and squares normally. Now, Lisa just did make the comment also that, is this because it's metal? Is that some kind of conductor to get, if there's Antiquitech and they're getting power from these spires that used to be on the towers, is this somehow how they're running it down and running it into poles? Or, I don't know. Just a comment she made I thought I'd mention. St. Mary's Church, that church we saw, this is a picture back from the 1800s. As you can see, nice big brick building. And then we've got this big spire here. This is another building. Oops, this, let's get a zoom in. Can't read that, but again, you can just see, look at the size of the people there. This as well, look at this building next to it. Big brick building. Big brick buildings, all this ornate stuff on the top and Antiquitech and stuff, but look at the size of these people. Like, their heads are at the bottom of that window. This is just ridiculously oversized. Now, I think there are a few steps going up, but still, that's just, in a country town with that population, why would you double the amount of materials you need to build these things? It just doesn't make sense. And who are they building them for? There was no one living there. Like a couple of hundred people maybe. Here it is again, the post office. Who was sending all this mail? Looks a bit set up. Got the 3 children here. And a parent or a handler. Not many people. You know, these kids, and it looks like another kid and 2 adults. Dirt roads. And these huge buildings. Mate, come on. This is the train station. As you can see, it's had this put on the front, but that's a nice big tall red brick building. And again, they're all very tall, these buildings. And another thing about this is it's not very big, it's not very wide. It's a lot of work, a lot of materials to go into making a building that's not really that big. So this is for the train stations. These are all the train lines, and you know, the train line today is just for hauling out all the produce. It's just commercial. But this is it back in the day, and they've built this ramp, and as you can see, it's all mud. There's not much going on here. This is the front of it. It's all been abandoned and blocked off now, the railway station. But you know, you can just see this classic architecture everywhere. This is the Shire Hall again. Look at this. Massive columns with all the floral stuff at the top. Steps going up. Massive doors that have had to be filled in because they're so big. You know, they may have been squared off, who knows. Got these funny things. I think I've got another photo. Lisa also mentioned that she thought these kind of looked a bit like fascies. See these kind of ornate thingies? And again, these bits here, I don't know what these are called. I'm going to have to find out. These are just everywhere. And they go from the buildings out. So what are they? You know, is there metal inside these? Are they some kind of conductor thing? I mean, who knows? This is the side of the Shire Hall again. You can see these big windows. This one's been cut out and they've put a door there. All this ornate stuff, the round windows we see. Built in the 1880s, guys, when there was, you know, the population was in the hundreds. Look at all this ornate work. Who was out there doing this? No, even just look at just the roof. Look at the work just to do that. Why would you just not put a straight roof on? But it's just silly. Look at the size of this thing. It does not need to be that big. You can see the door here. Why are these windows up here? I mean, what that is also telling you is that that's one story. There's no floor in there. Because look, the windows are up high. So they've built a building that's literally 3 times taller than it needs to be. So it's 3 times more bricks. 3 times more work. And a lot of these, you can see it is red brick. And then they just face them off. They just cover them to give them a different look. All these photos are by Lisa, by the way. She lives in Yarrawonga and had a bit of a walk around. Again, you can see another window they've cut off. Lots of red brick, steps going up. People having a chat, but these things too. And I'm not sure if this has been retrofitted, because you can see this window is square, and this window is I think that's air conditioning maybe. But you can see they're different heights. So they've sort of changed the facade a bit there. Massive columns. Look how wide that is. You know, just plonked it up there in the 1880s. Why not? I mean, there was no roads. There was no industry there. Why wouldn't you? You know, come on. Here it is again, Town Hall. And just look at the size of it. That's a big building, and you can see, you know, like I said, the roof's all stepped down. It's just so much work in the 1880s, and I mean, come on, they didn't even have the people to fill the front of this place back then. It's enormous. Where did all the bricks come from? Where did the glass come from? Where did these columns come from? Who put it all together? How did they get it there?
Okay, this is Yarrawonga. It's supposed to be, I think, a bank once, maybe. This is supposed to be ground floor. You can see clearly it's a massive building, and if we have a look in here, we still have the metal pressed roof. It's used to conduct the energy. Massive walls. Perspective. And the red brick. Huge windows. See, thank you. Not really sure why we'd need windows that big. And it goes all the way out back. Let's see. Evidence of mud flood unevenly. Try and get some more here.
This is the construction photo. Oops. So this one looks like it's a bit cut off, but just see down here? I mean, that's obviously in the shadows, but this bit down here just doesn't look like it's been built. It looks like it's, I don't know, being fixed. It looks like it's been burnt or something. I'm not sure what this pipe stuff is. You know, it's probably part of the scaffolding. But as you can see, that's a completed building. It's even got the, like this, is that a facade? I mean, this definitely has been all sunken in. Got bits and pieces there. Glass in the windows by the looks of it, because you've got these panes, and they're saying they're building it and they've got glass in the windows before the roof is on. And again in 1930, you know, what was the population? 1,000 people? It's only not even 8,000 today. This is a church. As you can see, just lots of kids. But this is wooden. This is what you would build. You know, it is a bit tall, you know, to give it that grandeur, but it's not stupidly massive. Nice, easy pitched roof, wood. So, because look at the roads. How are you going to get stone and dirt, bricks through this dirt? Wood isn't as heavy, and wood's everywhere. Look, there's even trees here. You would use wood. And when you use wood, all you need is wood and nails. I mean, half the time, if you've got good saws and good tradesmen, you don't even need nails. So these are these fascies things that Lisa was pointing at. You know, are these some kind of antiquitechy type thing? I mean, it is called the Terminus, right? Terminus Hotel. So that's another building, you know, built. I'm not sure the date, but you can, you know, that would definitely, they'd be saying around the 1900s. You know, for who? For who are they building all these buildings for? Because this is pictures of Australia from 1880. So this is the time frame that all these brick buildings were built. Now this is a wharf. So this is industry, this is trading, this is getting necessities in and, you know, trading out so we can get money. Small wooden buildings. Okay, so that's what they would build. That's what they did build again. You know, and this one looks double story, but that's, you know, it's not ridiculous. It's a warehouse probably. And again, you know, with this kind of landscape, you can just build a wooden house up on stilts. You know, you don't have to do the foundations. For these brick buildings, you need massive foundations. Church. And a nice ornate church with a spire. It's wood. That's a house you would expect to build. And this is a church you would expect to be built. That's a school. That says that's a school. So this is building stuff to the level of tech you've got, and also the materials you've got and the skills. So this wooden house up on stilts, all wood. Presbyterian Church of Mackay. So this is what you see, wood. St. Joseph Catholic Church. Some people having a picnic in the bush. And this one, these are brick, but all these buildings are wood. I said this is some kind of industry. But look at these guys. What do you got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that we can see. Looks like there's more around the back. And they're pushing this thing. It looks like some metal wheels. I don't know. They're pushing these carts full of something somewhere just through the mud, as you do. Kind of looks set up. This guy's hanging out there having a look. But again, they found these chimneys because this is all wood. And that's what you would do. You would need these if they had heat going through them. They would need to be brick, but these don't. Whoops. So I just wanted to show you that, this is 1880s. This is what you would build. This is what Australia was like in the 1880s. There was nothing there. So you would use wood because there's trees. Look at them all. You would not be. Why would you go to the effort of, to use bricks? You need to create a whole industry just to make the bricks. Then you need the mortar. Then you need people who can lay them. You need all, the spirit levels and the bobs and people who are trained. And then you need to be able to move all this stuff on your dirt roads. And these guys are just building here are the trees, wooden buildings. So this is why that's, whoops, I'm just pushing the wrong buttons everywhere. So this is why this story is so ridiculous. Even this, so that's a nice big grand house. Like again, up off the ground because the ground's not level. Wood. Wood again, this one's got steeples and everything. Big, big house. They've probably got quite a lot of money to build that. And it's wood. This one is brick. Steam flour mill in Warwick. This looks half sunk, this building. You can see they've added onto it. And what have they added on with? Wood. And why would you build a 3-story building in 1880 if it was a flour mill? There's no elevators, it's just much more work. It's not like they were competing for space in Australia. So there you go, guys. Seriously. They would be building from wood. European hotel, wood. 1880. Alright. So what I want to do now is just show you a quick video that Lisa sent me. Now this is Lisa going around the town hall, which is that the place with the little bits of antiquitech on it. So enjoy just for a few minutes, and then I've got a few more bits and pieces I want to go through. All right. This is just the Tuggerma Heritage Trail. This is just some more buildings in the area in the Moira district. This is Masonic Hall, 1889. Brick. We've got this balustrade that we see everywhere. We've got everything. This is just so old world. But look how wide it is. This thing is tiny. Why would you go to all that effort, all that expense, just to build something so small? That doesn't make sense. And they just rebrand it with their Masonic logos. There's a few more just to show you what's around. This again, big brick building. They've just faced it off with render, and they've put this big balcony around the outside. But if you look at the top here, you can see that's That's, the roofs that are flat and they've got the walls around them. That's what it is. Another one, courthouse. Seriously, look at the work that's gone into that. Again, this is, out in the middle of nowhere, built in the 1880s. This I think it's brick, I'm not even sure, but this is wood. But look at this. Again, these big facades and there's balustrading, a bit of antiquity up there. Red brick, but again, not a huge building. And there we go, Masonic Hall. So this, they say that Yarrawonga basically got a train line back in the 1800s, and that's what helped it grow. So it was the Oakland's railway line, and it's a freight-only railway line now. And the history is the first section opened in 1883, 32 kilometres or 20 miles, branch line to St James. At the same time, the extension of the main line to Albury in New South Wales, and in 1886 it was extended to Yarrawonga. 1886. Now, Yarrawonga was founded in 1881, So this is 5 years after, and of course there's no one living there, so they decided to build a train line out there and that brick train station that we saw that is no longer used. This is the history of iron smelting in Australia. I couldn't even find anything on glass making apart from bottle making and things, and even that, all that was up, early 1900s. So how did they even get the windows for these things? So what it says is Victoria and South Australia. Similar attempts at iron smelting were made in Victoria and South Australia. In 1873, the Victorian Iron Company built a small brick blast furnace at Maldon near Castlemaine in central Victoria. And in 1874, a 3-foot hearth blast furnace was built by the South Australian Iron and Steel Company Limited on the Hindmarsh River north of Victor Harbour to use ore from Mount Jagged. Using charcoal as fuel, the Mountain furnace produced about 1 tonne of metal, while the Hindmarsh River furnace, equipped with a hot blast stove, produced 30 tonnes of iron before being abandoned, both with chilled hearths. So this one ran for a year, it only produced 30 tonnes, and this other one can produce 1 tonne a year. 1874. So the main interest in production of iron from natural resources in Victoria was in Ballarat, which in the 1870s had become a large engineering centre providing machinery for the mining industry. Iron ore had been discovered in 1857 on the west bank of the West Maroubral River at Lilai, 16 miles southeast of Ballarat, and the Lilai Iron Mining Company was formed in 1874. An iron-plated blast furnace was built 28 feet high with a 30-inch diameter, blah blah blah. The furnace was lit in October 1875 and 127 tonnes of iron were produced by the end of the year, during which experiments were carried out using charcoal, etc., etc. So this is the first really sort of viable iron smelter, iron producer in Ballarat, Victoria, 1875. You can see the year earlier they had 2 other ones. One only ran a year and the other one wasn't really producing much. It was like a 3-foot furnace. Is that right? 3 feet, yeah, half, tiny. Okay, so no iron produced in Australia, or definitely in Victoria, before 1874. And what did it say here? The first sections were opened in 1883. Is that right? Yeah, so 1883 we've got there. Now this is a Victorian Railway history, 1839 to 1899, if I can speak. So 1850, they had a public meeting. They want a railway linking Melbourne to Sandridge. 1853, government approves the establishment of the Melbourne and Hobson Bay Railway Company. 1853. 1853, they approved the Geelong and Melbourne Railway Company. 1854, September 12th, opening of the Melbourne and Hobson Bay Railway using a locally constructed locomotive. This is possibly the first locomotive hauled train in the Southern Hemisphere. So they've opened their first train track and built a locomotive in 1854. What did they build them out of? Because there was nothing until 1874. No iron. Now, if you're going to tell me, if you're going to give me my comments and tell me that they were bringing this iron over on ships, yes, I shall respond adequately. I mean, it's just a ridiculous story. Again, it's just, I don't even know what to say here. You know, when was the first railway built in Australia? It was basically 1854. Only 20 years before they had the iron to do it. So this is the Melbourne and Hobson Bay Railway Company. This is the guys who built this, the first locomotive. If my computer will show it to you, there we go. Basically just a big boiler on wheels, big boiler here. Off you go. It's just to haul cargo. So January 1853, they were hired. They formed a company to build the line from Melbourne to the port of Sandridge. It was constructed to the Irish broad gauge. This is the tracks, 1600 mil. It was opened on the 12th of September 1854, more than a year before the Sydney to Parramatta Railway. So this is what they built. The engineer for the line was William Snell Chauncey, but he was forced to resign in 1845 due to problems with his work, such as the failure of piles on the railway pier. I don't know what that means. But basically, these are the guys who built this in 1854. Okay, they started laying the tracks in the 50s, blah, blah, blah. I mean, what were they building without iron? Robert Martin and Smith was an engineering firm in Melbourne in the second half of the 19th century. The company manufactured the first steam locomotive to be built in Australia. Robinson, Martin and Smith comprised a partnership of William D. Robertson, an English-born engineer, John Martin and William Smith. The company was opened from at least mid-1853. Okay, they advertised for labourers, blah, blah, blah. When the Melbourne and Hobson Bay Railway Company began construction of the first steam-hauled railway line to operate in Australia, they ordered the locomotive from the renowned British engineering firm Robert Stephenson and Company. However, the ship was delayed, and so the railway looked to the firm that had previously constructed a small donkey engine for hauling supplies, and the boiler was made by Langland's Foundry. Langland's Foundry was Melbourne's first foundry and iron shipbuilder, 1842 to 1897. Really? Why is that not in the history of iron smelting in Australia? Now, this is University ROUWA EDU, Education Australia. I mean, what's going on here again? You know, we always get more than one story and they just don't add up. Langland's was Melbourne's first foundry of iron and shipbuilder in 1840, or they were around for 1842 to 97. Only 8 years after the founding of the colony by two Scottish immigrants, they opened it up. Blah, blah, blah. This is just like basically about the people, and that's all we get. So we don't really get a history of the company or what it did. The foundry was originally located in Flinders Lane between King and Spencer Streets. Their sole machine tool when they commenced business was a small slide rest lathe turned by foot. In about 1865, they moved to the south side of the river to the Yarra Bank near the Spencer Steel Bridge. Blah, blah, blah. So again, and these guys, I mean, they call it a foundry, which means that's what makes iron, but there's not a lot of stuff about them and what was going on. Whereas as you look at this one, it doesn't even mention them. It's got completely different dates. Whoa. And this is, this is like a technical history paper, This is Wikipedia. So yeah, they could have been getting iron that they could turn, definitely, but we're talking small, making lamp, candle holders and things like this, little ornamental things, not kilometres and kilometres and kilometres of railway tracks and enough steel to make, a railway engine. So the history of Australia is a bit weird, guys, and this is all happening, like I said, all these pictures from the start, that's just in the middle of nowhere in Victoria, Australia. The rest, even though we talked about they were making the things in Victoria, they were laying the tracks out in the middle of nowhere, out here. Which, there's a lot of distance to cover. They said 1881. Now Australia was only founded, so we're told, 1788. It wasn't even, it was not even a federation until 1901. So we're talking 1880, so basically after the first settlements, it's sort of, they're really 1820s, 1830s, so we're talking 50 years, 60 years after settlement, and that's a big distance. That's a big distance. Australia's not a small country. It's probably bigger than some of the countries in Europe, and with no iron. And again, why would they be building all these brick buildings when they've got no brick? But what they do have is lots of wood. So there you go, guys. Yarrawonga in rural Victoria. Pretty much an impossible town. Huge stone buildings, brick buildings, built in the 1880s when the population was pretty much zero, definitely under 1,000. There was no roads or anything to get these bricks in. There was no brick manufacturers around. There was no glass manufacturing in Australia. And these are oversized, massive buildings. So what do you think the real story is? Alright, thank you for spending some time with me. I hope you enjoyed that one. If this, like I said, came from Lisa, so if you've got any information on some interesting towns and places and things, let me know in the comments. Also leave me a like. Please share this content if you like it. And there's also autodidactic merchandise link in the more section, the about section, where you can get hats and t-shirts and let the world know that his story is not our story and self-education is the way forward. Thanks for joining me. Have an amazing day, and I'll catch you on the next upload, guys. Bye for now.